Late Night with the Devil is a horror hit. It's broken records and has tons of praise, including from Stephen King, who said it's absolutely brilliant and couldn't take my eyes off of it. Your results may vary, as they say, but I urge that you watch it when you can. So I'm Rob,
I'm Mike.
And I'm Matt.
and we each watched Late Night with the Devil, and this is our first time actually discussing it together today. And stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen, because later on in this podcast, we will attempt to commune with the devil ourselves. But
Wait,
first,
what?
without giving
No, I
anything
didn't agree to
away,
that.
but first, how did you guys watch this? So, my experience with it is that I watched this when I was on the train commuting. So I actually did it in like two phases, going to work, coming home, and I watched it this way. And it was actually really cool to do it this way because like I was like super engrossed the whole time, and I completely forgot that I was commuting, and it was like the best way to watch this type of movie because I feel like they did a good job of like kind of keeping you sucked in throughout. So I don't know if you guys had similar experiences watching this, but how did you watch it, Mike?
Yeah, I actually watched it late night. So I watched it before I went to bed. It took me two sittings to watch it because the first time I fell asleep because I'm getting old. But the second time I was able to actually stay up and yeah, kind of old school style living room, lights off, fired it up on the PlayStation. And actually it was interesting kind of watching it essentially two times because I fell asleep the first time, but um I actually watched it late night.
How about you, Matt?
I also watched it late night. It was kind of nice. Me and my wife have we've been trying to get to watch movies just because our son Ben doesn't like to go to sleep. This was one night he was asleep, and I was like, "Let's watch it." It's like, what was it, an hour and a half? And it was
Mhm.
perfect. It was just like, and it was cool. We had the lights dimmed. It was, creepy, very cool atmosphere, like atmosphere. So.
Cool, cool. So, I mean, with that said, like, what were your initial reactions to the film? Like, you're watching it for the first time, and like, what was that experience like, Mike? I'll go back to you.
Yeah, I found kind of that beginning where it just kept giving like the sponsorships like for a long time. I like, is this a
Oh my
joke?
God, that was insane.
So it took me a little while to get through it because at first like I'm just kind of getting settled and getting my getting comfortable. I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like, why does this
Like, what
keep
did they get,
going and going?
$5 each? Like, it was like, was that like, did anybody find out if that was a joke or that was like legitimately they went to all these bullshit bootleg, little distributors and was like, hey, can I get like $100 here and
Yeah.
$100 there?
Yeah, I honestly don't know because when I watched it the first time, like I just normally what happens, I'll put a movie on and then I'll like walk away and do something else. And then when I come back and it's like, okay, now the movie started because I missed all the credits and everything. But with this movie, so I watched it twice. The second time I watched it, I completely forgot that that happened. So then I'm just sitting there and it just kept going and going. And I'm like, I thought this movie was like an hour and 20 minutes. Why is this taking so long?
Wait a second.
Yeah,
I
so that was
have
a
the,
little.
oh, no, I have the Wikipedia thing up. I just looked production companies. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven. Holy shit, they're legitimate
So it was
fucking
legit.
companies. It was
Wow.
complete. And then there's distributed by, and that's another five. What's it called? So I'm not kidding.
That
So, all right. Well,
that
that
lines
answered
up because
that
that was like
question.
5 minutes of my life that I wasted. But
Yeah,
yeah,
but
no, so
Anyway,
kind of getting yeah, seeing it, what I found it cool, it's like, it has that talk show kind of vibe to it. So like I immediately kind of felt it, so it grabbed me. And I thought, okay, this will be interesting.
what about you, Matt?
yeah, I really like that whole late night thing. I mean, I grew up, my mom would watch all like the variety shows and stuff. And like that fakeness that always came off with the variety shows. I mean, I know we used to watch like Conan O'Brien stuff, like me, you, and Mike, but like I like that older type, like that Johnny Carson stuff. It really came off. I was like, wow, they're doing a really good job of making it feel like that variety hour. And then like when they started cutting to like they were showing things going on in like the world, and then all of a sudden it's as it started like degrade, like his show started degrading. Like there was one part where he was like arm wrestling a little person, and then that one woman was like like said something to him, and he's like, she's like, "Go fuck yourself," and he like walks off. And I'm like, oh, this is like, it's funny because it felt very real, like when someone does something on live TV. So the initial reaction of it was pretty cool.
Yeah. And I think it's the same for me too. Like what I really liked about it was that it felt like it was an actual late night show. I mean, like everything about it. So I've worked on late night shows too. So like having that experience of being on set and then also seeing what's going on the camera, like it was kind of jarring for me too because it felt like something that I've seen in real
Did it
life.
feel a little too like, oh, like I don't want to watch? Did it actually add to the tension a little bit
It
because you
did.
know what
And
it's like?
yeah, and it was cool because like there's like a franticness that happens throughout like the movie itself, but that's like typical TV production too.
Okay.
So it's just like you're kind of like hearing all these notes and hearing how like everybody's kind of going a little crazy backstage and everything. And it's like I
Mhm.
can actually see that happening in real life. So I think that they really did capture all of that in a really well that like it felt like you were actually watching this show as it was unfolding both on screen and backstage. So I thought that was really cool. And I think that's what kept me like so invested throughout of it and throughout the whole movie
Mhm.
because like I was just waiting for what was going to happen next. And I feel like I don't really have that anticipation with like newer movies now. Like I just feel like you kind of know what's going to
Yeah.
happen. And this one, like you kind of knew what was going to happen, but you want to see how they were going to get there.
I also like the little things like the awkward bad jokes that people do when it was just funny, and especially like when something awkward happened and then he'd throw a joke in. Like I think there was something with the first guru guy, and like he would just turn to the camera and make like a bad joke, and I'm just like, oh Jesus, this is exactly that fakeness, like late night bullshit. I like I don't know, that really was just like so on point, you know?
And I think like we've already talked about it, but like the atmosphere and tone in the movie, I think that they really did nail it. Like when you really think about it, that you felt the tension in the sense that, you know, in this you already knew that it was like a failing show. And then you're
Mhm.
like, is this a complete disaster as it's happening? And of course, like the title gives it away and all the trailers and everything give it away, but like to see it all unfold, I thought that was really interesting in the way that that take that they had. So like what did you guys think? I know we kind of talked about it a bit, but like I think the tone I think is really interesting here too. So, it's taking that lightheartedness and then kind of removing it from what a talk show really is because there's like
Yeah.
an unnerving and tension that's happening throughout. So like do you feel like that actually helped you like stay invested in the movie? So
Totally. I like that. I think that they used like old type of like the 70s type of footage. I don't know. I mean, I would have to look it up, but it had that grainy feel that you would see on like a talk show. It really added to the atmosphere is what I'm saying because it felt realistic. That's where I was going with it.
yeah. What about you, Mike?
Yeah, what I you mentioned, Rob, the tension that was being built up throughout it, and I thought they did a really great job with the commercial breaks, like when they were kind of setting
Yeah.
that kind of transition up where
Mhm.
um it kind of had that frantic pace a bit because like it's supposed to be like a live show, so like you really only have a short window of time to kind of get your stuff together before you come back like on the air. So I think that like how that built up over time, especially because they treated it almost like in real time, like it was essentially like the length of a commercial break. Like I just felt the tension kind of building throughout. And as the like stakes kind of started amping up more and more, just kind of like I felt myself being pulled in more. So the interesting thing for me was just like how different it would be kind of the live show versus the commercial where like the commercial breaks were a little bit more chaotic, but it then kind of like you take that chaotic feeling and that frenetic feeling and then it's like now they're back on air. So it's just like the tension just keeps rising a little bit more with each kind of scene. So for me, it kept me pretty engaged. Like in the beginning, I'm kind of watching and I'm paying attention. And like Matt, like you said, it's like, oh, this is like corny, but it's kind of working in terms of the style. But then along the way, just like feeling it build up more and more and more. So I thought it really did a good job of kind of like sucking you in and then kind of having that framework of, like, it's building to something. So each commercial break, like you have this feeling of like, oh God, like what's going to happen now type thing, which I thought was pretty cool.
Well, did you
I
guys
think
feel
the
it
other,
jarring with the commercial breaks that it was like black and white? It was supposed to be like behind the scenes, like someone was back there filming it. Like I thought it worked, but I could see someone being like, "Oh, that's a little like too much." You know what I mean? Because it is supposed to be a found footage. What did you guys think?
yeah, I thought that was it was like an interesting idea, and I actually think that it could have actually worked better without it altogether because like I guess it was good because it was really setting the tone for each of the segments. But I think each of the segments, if you just saw them as if they were a show, would actually be more impactful. If you
Mhm.
saw that like happening through the eyes of a viewer rather than through the eyes of like somebody watching it all unfold. So I I liked it, but I also thought that it was like it almost felt like padding sometimes. So, yeah, I don't know if we lost Matt, but we might have.
Okay.
But either way, I think that, the other thing about
What
this
about you?
movie, oh, I think we're hearing premonitions of Matt coming through the speakers. I don't know if that's
I
It's the
think
maybe
the
demon,
not.
devil's fucking with those
the
guys.
demon working through him.
This is really strange. It's just a still image of Matt
Okay,
that's
now
speaking to
if you
us.
guys can hear me, Rob sounds like a
No, no.
demon right
Where is
now.
his voice coming from?
His mouth isn't moving. That's really strange. It's like the essence of Matt, the evil essence of Matt.
It just blinked. Okay, well, we should just continue with this show because things are getting a little weird here. But I think the other thing about this movie was that the lights are flickering too. The other thing about this
This is
movie is
getting weird.
that, I the characters throughout the movie, there's a black screen. The characters throughout the movie, I thought they all played off each other really well. So like especially Jack Delroy, I mean, that character, I don't think anybody else could have played that character as well as he did.
Yeah.
What did you guys think? Like as you were watching it, like you have that character that's supposed to have that talk show charm, and you start to see a little bit of the onion getting peeled as the movie's going on, and finding out a little bit more about him. So like, what did you think of his overall development? Mike, I'll go to you because we don't know if there's going to be Ghost Matt showing up or not.
I'm sorry. Like you guys sounded like demons and then it went out for a second. Like maybe it's the devil fucking with my sound or some shit. But I'm back. But Mike, you go first.
um, yeah, I thought it was there was that sense of desperation from him, where like he felt like, he was just like on the precipice of success and was like he was just kind of losing out. I mean, he initially made me feel uncomfortable, like even just beyond the slimy like talk show host, just that, he just seemed like something was weird, something was off. And especially as like the movie kind of plays out and you learn a little bit more about his backstory and some of the things that he did. Like obviously he had, the situation with his wife, which was sad, but just kind of like where it went from there. Like there was just this level of like sleaziness about him that, you know, you could, I think, to see his crew and the staff really being like upset and concerned, particularly kind of with this buildup about trying to summon and kind of speak with the devil. And he's just kind of like, I need my ratings. Like, we need this. This is something that's going to be really important, very kind of carny of him, to kind of like have a, like a
Really,
train wreck be. I mean, look, he did have a little bit of Eric Bischoff vibes. I have
he's a
to say
carny
it. All right.
he's a carny asshole.
Yeah, between the hair, the suit, and all that, the smile, So there was elements of that. So like, yeah, you definitely like it seemed like there was something simmering behind the surface with him, and it was kind of building up. So like, that kind of related payoff was interesting, and then it's like kind of brings into question too, like, you know, um, when you think about kind of the demon and the devil, like, was it always working through him in some way? Because he seems like the type who, you know, would kind of lend himself to that type of kind of behavior and stuff like that. So I thought it was interesting because, and I almost felt bad for him that like this is what it was going to take for him to try to like make it big, you know? But I didn't find myself rooting for him either because it was just like like the thick layer of sleaze around him was like a little bit too much to penetrate.
What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, he was a total fucking sleazeball. And I think that especially like when the first guy, the oh
Was it
God,
Christoph?
that how yeah, it was like
I forgot his
Christo
name.
or something. Yeah. Oh yeah,
Christo.
Christo. Yeah, that's and when he like vomits up on the thing and then they take him out and then they're like, he died. And he's like, oh, okay. Oh, he's like, oh, really? And he just keeps going. And I'm just like, wow, dude, like your fucking guest just died on your show. And it was weird too, because, again, since we're getting into spoilers, like how the beginning connects with the end. It's like, they talked about the whole thing with Abraxas and that cult. And I'm like, all right, something maybe I didn't know if like he was involved with it, but something was gonna happen with that. I figured, you know what I mean? And then when that whole thing played out, it's like, oh, okay, he was a fucking scumbag like the whole time, you know?
Yeah, I found what I found really interesting too is because I had that like staggered watch, I kind of forgot about that intro as the movie was going
Hmm.
on. And it was like when it started to call back to it, I was like, I didn't even like fully grasp it. So I watched
Hmm.
this the second time and I watched that with Shay with my wife, and I was like watching her reactions to it. And she was seeing it for the first time. And she had that moment where she was like, should I care about this? And then the movie
Hmm.
went on, and I felt like that actually helped it too, where it was like you kind of got engrossed in the show itself.
Yeah, you
And
did.
maybe it was just me or it was us, we were tired or whatever, but like that whole thing just felt like an afterthought that came back into the overall story, which is how it should play out because this is supposed to be real life and this is supposed to be this real scumbag that everybody just doesn't see through the facade until it actually unfolds in front of you. And then you start calling back, like, oh shit, yeah, he was tied to this. And oh yeah, he did do this in the past. And you're like, oh, okay, this all makes sense now. So I almost felt like my own like brain development was happening throughout the movie, and I'm like kind of seeing it all together, and it's like that moment of realization where you're like, okay, this guy really is a scumbag, and he's had like such a great veil in front of him that people don't even see it. So I thought that was kind of cool, and I did
Oh,
like also.
oh, sorry.
Good, go
Oh
ahead,
no, I
man.
just want to say that that whole thing in the beginning was like a total Chekhov's gun that they introduce it, but then it's like you forget again. It's like Chekhov's gun. You just see it. You're not really paying attention to it, but it comes back at the end, you know.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Rob.
No, and then the other thing I was going to say is that I think that they did, again, it goes back to the pacing, but I think that like each of the characters had such purpose to it. And I think that it
Hmm.
also kept you invested in a different way because it's like you had, God, I forgot the first guy's name again. Whatever the vomiting dude. You had him,
Christou,
Christou,
yeah, he was the
who
medium
like
Christou, and
y-
mhm,
he like was a complete like that was a joke. And
yeah,
he was coming off as a joke. And it's like, okay, well, all these possessions and all these other things, clearly it's not real. Then you had the other guy come in and say, this is not real. And he was like continuing to hammer home the fact that this is not real. I can show you that this is not real. And then I thought that that also helped in the overall story where like you're kind of getting the fake out in your own mind where you're like, okay, well, they're going to lead to something here, what that payoff is going to be, how it's going to happen. And then when you had Lily and again, I forgot the
June, the author.
June. You had them come on, and then there was a seriousness to them, but then they just kind of got faked out too, but then they didn't, and like all that stuff I thought was cool. I thought she was amazing in the role because she was
That was
creepy
fucking
as all
creepy,
hell.
dude. That was creepy as shit. And I like the subtleness of it too. Like at first, one thing I will say, going back to like that whole thing I was saying about how it reminded me of like the Johnny Carson stuff. What reminded me a lot of like, 'cause, like, just like reading through like the 70s, 80s, 90s and history and stuff is that the former magician and skeptic guy totally reminded me. You guys know James Randi? Have you guys ever heard of him?
No.
He was a guy, he was a magician that would go on shows and offer $1 million and said, like, okay, if you could do. So it was funny when I was watching and I was like, oh shit, they must have like mirrored him. I mean, they really did like an over the top performance of him. But when I watched it, I'm like, shit, that they're definitely doing the James, because even when he got on, I was like, I bet he's gonna offer money. And then he's like, oh, I will offer money for that. So I thought that was kind of cool that they kind of like mirrored it on real life characters, or real life figures.
So I didn't have this in the run of the show, but I probably should have. When you look at the ending and all of that, I thought the ending was a little bit different from what I was expecting here. Like, how did you guys feel like this movie paid off at the end? Matt, I'd love to hear from you. Like, I don't know. I go back and forth on it.
I'd like to hear from Mike because we only like vaguely talked about it, but we definitely had two different viewpoints. So anyway, Mike, why don't you go first with this?
Sure. Yeah, so I was kind of buying into the movie the whole time. Again, I felt the tension building. I liked kind of the background stuff that they were touching on. It was subtle enough that like if you're familiar with kind of these stories and like the lore and stuff like that, like it starts like, oh, wait a minute, like kind of the whole cult thing that was happening. And I know, Matt, this is something we've been waiting to talk about a little bit, so we'll see how we tee it up. But Rob, to your point, I really didn't care for the ending at all. I thought it kind of like it just went in a weird direction. Although it was like kind of interesting, like I thought it was a little interesting, but then like her head splitting, the electricity, like all that, it was just kind of, oh, this is kind of like lame for me. So I just felt like this really good build up, and then the payoff was like kind of like whack, for lack of a better word. But then where how it actually ended though, like once it got past that, I thought it was kind of interesting the way, for me, tying back into like kind of the cult stuff. Like if you were paying attention to kind of the details around the cult, like now all of a sudden for me it's like, oh, okay, like now it's kind of adding up. But like that whole scene of like with her, and like I don't know if you guys picked up on this too, because that particular cult, there's a lot of like owl imagery kind of
Hmm.
associated with it,
And
and the
yeah, and
way
it's
her
called
head
Night
split.
Owl. It's
Right,
like
right. And the way her head split, it was kind of like an owl. So I was just kind of like, all right, this is a little on the nose now for me. But yeah,
so.
I don't really care for the, kind of how it ended. And I know, Matt, you had an interpretation of what you thought like was actually happening, and then like I had something a little bit different in mind.
So for me, for the thing before the way ending, which you were talking about when everything goes out of chaos, I actually liked it because first of all, the head splitting thing always freaks me the fuck out ever since I saw VHS, the original, because there's like a demon that splits her head like that. And the special effects actually looked like something from that time period. So I thought it was kind of cool because it's like, even though it was corny, it was like I think they were doing that on purpose. Like they didn't really try to make it ultra realistic. They were actually trying to make it like, oh, if you were watching the 70s and watching this thing. So I did enjoy it for that. Like for I guess I don't know if I would say campiness, but I did kind of enjoy it. Do you want me to say my interpretation of the way ending now, Mike,
Yeah.
or?
Uh,
So for the way ending, it's the whole thing where he wakes up and then it's like basically he's with the cult. Now, the thing that I took from it was that it was showing the events of like what he did through like watching like a 70s like TV show or watching it like, you know what I mean? So it's like he got into the cult, this is what happened with his wife and stuff like that. And to me, I was like he was seeing like basically memories, but it was like through the vision of watching it like if it was filmed like his TV show. That's at least how I took it. And I think, Mike, you said that you got something different from it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to remember exactly now, but I know, for me, the big payoff was around if you were paying attention to the things with the cult, it was like these girls being sacrificed when they turned 13,
Mhm.
and Lily had just turned 13 at the
Oh
time of the
shit, I
show.
didn't
So
even I
like
forgot about that.
yeah.
her,
Yeah.
yeah,
Sorry.
so
Go ahead.
that like him him like murdering her essentially was like the sacrifice needed to like kind of close the loop on the cult. So like um I don't know if that was like the demon kind of like getting him revved up, to kind of do what needed to be done, but like it actually flowed with, kind of the timing of, all those sacrifices that they made. Like they always killed these girls when they were 13, and then she had just turned 13. The other part too is that, as you all know, like, what's the big thing about Halloween, right? That's where they say like the veil between the living and the dead is like at its thinnest,
Yeah.
where it's the most the easiest time to kind of penetrate. So knowing that this particular talk show was on Halloween, it's kind of like, again, technically kind of the easiest time for a demon to come through, just because that veil is so thin. So yeah, for me it was really about kind of paying off like the cult sacrifice that was needed, so like kind of getting him to the finish line to kind of put the knife in her to kind of wrap that whole thing up.
Now, Mike, the real question is, are you mad that the Ghostbusters didn't show up?
I
I
mean, the
just,
Ghostbusters don't really deal with with demons though,
well, what are you fucking kidding me? Aren't the demon dogs? Aren't they the fucking
Yeah, but they're not necessarily from hell. They're just
wasn't
called
it
that.
supposed to be
That's
like,
just
the
that's them
original,
being cute.
it's actually kind of funny if since it was the 70s, it wouldn't have been the Ghostbusters, it would have been that fucking Ghostbusters from the 70s, like what was it with the monkey and the two dudes?
Yeah,
That
with
would have been the
yeah,
Ghostbusters
with the
that would have like
gorilla. Yeah,
yeah, that would have been an amazing ending.
listen,
Let's
I know we're going on a tangent. I do have to say though, the theme song for that Ghostbusters, top
is fucking
notch.
yeah, that's a 10 out of 10. The rest of the
Yeah,
show is dog shit, but 10 out of 10 for that fucking just as good as the real Ghostbusters, like
it's up there. It's pretty solid. But
yeah.
what did you
Anyway,
think of the
so
ending, Rob?
So, so I guess this led to the next question that I had for you guys, though. Who was the devil?
is it all of us?
Or was it Jack the whole time? Was it that he, like the way I interpreted the ending,
Hmm.
was that obviously this entire time you were watching the devil unveil himself, but the devil was Jack and was not Lily.
Okay.
And I still teeter with the like, did this really happen? Or was this him entering hell? Was this him like he had died and now this is him reliving everything? He spent most of his time in front of the camera. So the way that he was entering into hell himself was by going through this moment of the Halloween episode.
That's a
And
good
then
interpretation. I didn't think of
and
that at
then
all.
yeah, like and now this is all his mind seeing it, because the thing that ends up happening here is that it's supposed to be a found footage movie,
Yeah.
but the found footage goes into his mind. So how did that happen? So where did the footage come from? How did you see him going from different scene to scene, but knowing that things are off? So that's the one part that like I kind of like, but then I kind of don't because it just didn't make sense.
Hmm.
And then like I think Matt, you had a great point about the fact that this felt like a 70s movie too, in the way that they did the special effects.
Hmm.
So was he envisioning that in his own mind because that's what he would have seen on a
In
TV
in
screen?
a treat. That's a fucking wow. Wow, I did not think of that, Rob. Shit. That's a fucking good interpretation.
It's
It's
all
gonna be funny
good,
when Mike's like, "That's a fucking stupid interpretation." I like that idea. I don't know if I would agree with it, but I do really like that interpretation of the story.
but I think that there's always like I think there's always good when it comes to ambiguity when it comes to an ending for a movie.
Totally.
But I think that this one was so out there that like I almost feel like they just didn't know what to do in the end. And then they just
Hmm.
like sort of like had it all happen. And it just, I think it was even harder to grasp it. And I think that's why there's so many open-ended questions to this and like what exactly they were trying to accomplish. And I feel like it kind of lost it a little bit.
Okay.
Um, and I don't think it had the impact that it should have had based on the way that the rest of the movie went.
Hmm.
But all this said, like I'll just turn to you guys, like recommendations. Would you recommend Late Night with the Devil to all horror fans, or do you think that it just, appeals to a specific subset of the genre enthusiasts? And
I think it's a very good movie. I don't think it's a great movie. What's funny, it actually made me right after the movie was over, I put on VHS 94 because it was on Shutter, so I was like, and I just was in that mood of like watching or found footage films. So if you're a found footage, like you like those types of films, this is totally up your alley. If you're not really into like if you don't really know about like the old late night show stuff and everything, and you're like looking for, I don't know, more of like a modern horror, you might not be into it as much. But I think that people, especially like our age and maybe a little older, I think would appreciate it more. So, but I recommend it though.
how would you, Mike?
Well, since you ass clowns think I don't, follow horror or like
But you don't
horror.
watch horror,
Yeah, I
Mike.
was gonna
You
say,
don't.
like, I think that it gives unique perspective of you not being a fan of horror at all, and would
Yeah,
like
yeah.
to hear from you. Like, would you think that somebody that really likes horror would like this movie?
Supposedly, Mike's gonna prove to us that he supposedly for all these years was actually watching horror movies with us, which I don't remember. I see like a blank space when I was watching all,
Yeah,
especially the
no,
thing, especially
yeah,
the
no,
thing.
it's all super convenient, the selective memory bullshit. But this is gonna end with me stabbing the two of you and bringing fucking Mr. Wriggles into the world. But yeah, you know what? I'll say this: what I like about for me, horror movies, what I enjoy about them is like being able to watch it again, right?
Yeah.
Like, is there a reason to watch it again? Like, if you just watch it the once and that's it, it's kind of like, all right, whatever. But what I really liked about Late Night with the Devil, so for me, I, inadvertently watched it twice. Like, I watched the first half hour, fell asleep, and then started it over again the next day. And it's when I started it over again that I started noticing some things happening in the backgrounds, like his wife, Madeline. Her spirit appears a lot throughout the movie, which is why
I
I
only caught
actually
it
think
once. So you said
yeah,
there's more than once, right?
I saw it at least four times. And I mean, I wasn't even really looking for it. You know what I mean? So, like, there's
Okay.
probably even more than that. Did you notice it, Rob, when you were
I
watching
didn't
it?
notice it, and I watched it the second time, and I still didn't notice it. But what I found really interesting was that I didn't realize that the like one of the producers in the back
Hmm.
kept mentioning it because he kept
Oh,
saying
okay.
like, "No, I'm not seeing it, you guys. Are you? I don't know what you're seeing. It's not picking up on the camera."
Shit, this makes
So
me
he
want to
was talking
rewatch
to
it.
somebody else that was saying that this was happening, but they're
Interesting.
not telling you.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, because there's a few scenes like if you rewatch it, she pops up in a mirror. She pops up near the table, near the knife, like when the knife gets put down
Hmm.
on the table. There's some more obvious ones where you see she like has her hand on
That's the
Jack's
one I
shoulder
remember.
and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Right.
Hmm.
But she appears a lot in the movie, which makes me think
That's
like
really
that he
creepy.
wasn't actually possessed. I think, there was something that she had some type of involvement with this in some way. So, for me, good horror is like it's worth a rewatch. So I wouldn't put this like, best movie I've ever seen horror wise, but I was pleasantly surprised. I really liked the tone of it. It felt different. It felt like something that I hadn't seen before, which I do appreciate. And then for me, the thing that makes this like a really good, like I give it like, B plus, A minus was the fact that um, it warrants a rewatch just to be able to pick up where do you see Madeline? Like, could you see where she pops up? And again, for me, that first, like, I thought I noticed it, but I'm like, maybe, I was falling asleep. I wasn't sure if that was the case, but just watching the first 30 minutes again, the second time, noticing her a couple of times, like, oh, wow, this is actually pretty nuts. So,
Shit, Mike, you're really good at horror analysis. I would never have guessed.
yeah, I
Yeah,
guess I'm so
no.
new to it, right? You fucking prick.
You know what? All kidding aside, me and Mike have talked many times. Mike actually got me to love the thing. Like I like the thing, but he got me to love the thing. And you guys also bought the 2002 video game. So we do know that Mike loves the thing. So we want to just put that out there. And I do recommend me and him do go back and forth, Rob, with like horror movies. Like I think I recommended Hereditary to you. And then I forgot what you recommended to me. There was a good horror movie recently you recommended to me,
You
but
guys gotta watch. You guys gotta watch Good Boy.
oh, that was the one. That yeah. So like that. So yes, Mike is very much so. I just want all our viewers to know that Mike is very, very like into horror, basically. He also
Yeah,
says like really
that was
disturbing things to me
convincing.
every day.
That was convincing.
So yeah, I
And
think
one quick thing I wanted to mention too, that I thought the naming the character Lily was on the nose. Like everything I watch has a Lily Lilith. It's like, come
That's
on,
because you
really?
fucking watch
Uh
Supernatural, dude. All right, like that's because of fucking
but it's not just
Supernatural.
supernatural. It's like fucking over. It's like
Well, what
Lilith
else
is
is
overdone. Multiverses are overdone. It's just kind of it's all
you love
getting
that
like it's
devil
getting to be too
shit?
much.
Look at your shirt for fuck's sake. I mean, fuck.
I have no
Is that a
problem with it.
Seven Dust shirt?
No, it's a WWE shirt actually.
Wait,
But
what?
um yeah, what I really like that she did because I had just seen something about The Shining, how there's like these key moments in The Shining where Jack Nicholson actually makes like very quick like direct eye contact with the camera. It's like a
I've
fourth
heard of
wall
that. Yeah.
break moment. And it's funny, I had just seen something about that, and then like she has these moments. I'm getting it's not as subtle like in The Shining. She like directly looks into the fucking camera, but like she does it in ways like both like very much like prominently, but also in the background, and it's just like very unsettling because she holds
It was,
that
yeah.
stare like maybe like a second or two too long, you know. So it just kind of brings up that sense of dread a bit. So like again, for me, it's like all these like kind of background things where if like you watch it again, you I think you appreciate the movie even more.
I think at the end of the day, for me, like I hear both sides. I think that I liked the movie. I liked it the second time. I actually disliked it a little bit more watching it the second time because
Really?
like
Okay.
I almost felt like I felt like I enjoyed so much of the build up, and then when we got to the end, it wasn't what I wanted it to be.
Hmm.
And then to watch it happen again the second time, I was like, oh, I'm kind of dreading this moment. And I feel like for a movie like this, the last thing you should want to do is dread the last moment because it's such a build up to it.
Hmm.
So, but I also like, I watch a ton of horror movies, but I don't watch too many more recent ones.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that that's what drew me for this one was the aesthetics of it, feeling like it was an older movie. But like I feel like there was some newer things that were happening here that you don't really see in current horror movies that I liked. I feel like it didn't go full on grotesque. I mean, there were moments of it, but like it felt contained and smart in a way,
Hmm.
not overly smart. So I did enjoy that a lot. I think it's worth a watch. I think that at the end of the day, like this is a movie that it's doing something different and interesting, so it's definitely worth giving it the time.
Hmm.
But I don't know if it's like the greatest horror movie. It definitely is not the greatest horror movie. It's definitely not the greatest horror movie in the past 10 years or so, but it was just an interesting movie that I think does need that like one experience that you can actually watch it and then just kind of like Stephen King said, your results may vary with this one.
Can I ask you guys a question? What do you think of, okay, first question is, what do you think of the idea that now we're in like the era of like elevated horror, where it's like horror is smart, even though I always thought horror was smart, it's just people are giving it more. But there's also been a run of movies like this that not just the VHS movies, but you have movies like Mandy or that director, I forget his name's like Patos Cosmazos, who like he does a lot of like very weird, creepy, like 70s psychedelic weird way of like film, and it's kind of cool, and I feel like this kind of fits into there. Like what do you guys think of like kind of like, I don't even know if it's a renaissance because it's really like the first time I've been seeing this, you know what's your thoughts on that stuff, like that.
Yeah. I think that it's nice for horror to be like super heady, but then it also isn't like there's a difference in like I watch Return of the Living Dead so many times, and
Hmm.
every single time I watch it, I think that that's such an amazing movie overall, and I think it's an amazing horror movie, it's an amazing comedy, everything about it. I
Hmm.
feel like when you mix those styles, it that's your return watch. that's something that you want to see over and over. Like, I also don't want to spend all my time watching a movie that I have to be so heavily invested in that I have to like think, is it super smart? Is it smarter than me? Am I smart enough to do all
Okay.
this and understand it? Like, I just want it to be a good time,
Hmm.
and not go so, you know, so
Artsy
heavy on being a
fartsy. Yeah.
genius.
Yeah. What do you think, Mike? Because we kind of
Yeah,
talk
no,
about a lot
I
of like
like it
movies
because
like that.
yeah,
So,
I like it just because I think it adds a different element to things where, a movie like Late Night with the Devil, you could show that to a casual horror fan. They could watch it, they'll have an opinion on it and then they'll just kind of move on. But like I think they'll probably enjoy it to some level and to some degree. So like I don't think they'd say that movie sucked. Again, for me, the ending was kind of iffy, but I think you could have anybody kind of watch it and kind of be open to it. And then for people like us who are kind of really into the genre, like again warranting that rewatch where I think it's interesting where you know you kind of watch a movie, you pick up on some references, they like again allude to some lore, to some bigger story, and then you do a little bit of research afterwards. Like I know Matt, you and I are big on like you watch a movie and then you pull your phone out and you start
yeah.
like looking
Yeah,
up
we're
some of the
totally
things that
like
were
that.
mentioned.
Yeah.
Right. And then it's kind of cool because then it's like, oh shit, this is what that meant. And like, you start reading about that cult, for example, right? And you start learning a little bit more about their background. And it's kind of like, oh wow, now this makes a little bit more sense. And you're almost like, oh, I kind of wish I had that context going in. Maybe I would have appreciated that a little bit more. And then for us, it may push us to actually watch it again. So like
Yeah.
what I kind of like about this style, that and kind of where horror movies are going in this direction is that you could get that one time watch for a casual fan or somebody who's a little bit more invested. There's enough there to warrant like another watch. And I think with this particular movie, whether it's like understanding the lore more and then watching it with that set of that perspective, or looking for like the scenes that Madeline pops up that like you don't realize, like it's probably like it may be even like up to a dozen times that she shows up again. I saw like maybe four or five, but it kind of gives you a reason to like be on just one watch, which I think is kind of nice because I feel like we're in a world of like big like epic series or like really or sequels and so many movies, like everything is like this big kind of anthology. So to have something that's really just contained, it's one thing and you could just kind of watch it, and then every time you watch it pick something else up that's a little bit different. Like I prefer that more than like if there's going to be like 10 Late Night with the Devils where like there's going to be like this continues the lineage. So that's something that's a little bit self-contained but it warrants looking at it again. For me, there's an appeal there. So I kind of like that direction, and how more horror movies are kind of trying that type of style out.
I really liked what you said though, is that I do like that it is a self-contained thing. And it's funny, a lot of the movies that we like that, the older movies felt great as like self-contained. Like Alien was a great self-contained movie. You know what I mean? Like Evil Dead was a great self-contained movie. I mean, I love the sequels, but I'm just saying that it's like everything had to become like, sometimes like Nightmare on Elm Street is a great just self-contained fucking movie. You know what I mean? And it's nice now that they're not jumping on a lot of these horror movies and making like Hereditary 2, Late Night with the Devil 2, Annihilation 2, because I don't feel like those movies need it. Like you said, it just, you can either watch it once and enjoy it, or you could really dig deep into it, but you don't need like the curtain unveiled from behind. It's more like there's still a lot of mystery to it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 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 for sure.
Yeah. So I think to sum all this up, I think that, our collective thought on this movie is that it is a good movie, not a great movie, but it's definitely something that you should experience one time and just sit back and enjoy it. But
Rob, the question for you: Does
Oh
this end
shit.
up in the Masters of Nonsense collection?
I don't know. I can't figure it out.
Is it like you buy it on like Prime Video, or do you actually get a physical copy of this? That's a better question.
First time viewing, I would have bought it. Second time viewing, I don't know.
Okay, gotcha.
So, but as promised earlier, we have a special guest to welcome to the Masters of Nonsense podcast. Before we bring them out, I did want to address one major
Wait, what the
criticism of the
fuck?
movie,
Is this one
which
behind you?
involved instances where AI was used to make graphics in the movie. The timing of this film really didn't do it any favors because it was a hot button issue during this time at the writer's strike,
I heard
and
about
I
that.
think over time things have blown over,
Mhm.
but still. With that said, I now think that this is the best time to bring our guests to have a conversation with the devil ourselves. And our guest today is Millie. So,
Millie.
yeah,
What the fuck? Wait, this is weird, Rob. You didn't fucking prepare me for this.
Millie's here. You can't
What the
see
fuck
her.
is
Wait,
this
wait,
shit?
wait a
What is
second.
this
Wait,
weirdo
wait.
shit, dude? Like,
M-
wait, like, I don't give a fuck if
Millie,
You
it's
don't want
AI or a real fucking spirit.
guys,
you.
listen. Millie is here. I need you two to both calm down so we can
No,
have
wait,
this
wait, wait.
conversation.
Yeah, but wait a second. This is like what freaking Jack did. You know what I mean? Like we're not consenting to
Bro,
this.
like, I better not I
We
don't even
didn't
give a
know
fuck
we were
if it's
signing up for
AI.
this.
Like,
All right,
you better not fucking put something on the screen that I'm gonna freak the fuck out at now.
all right. So listen, Millie is here. I can speak to her. She can hear you guys, but for the sake of a conversation, I'll be asking the questions, okay? Just let me know if you can hear her because I don't know if it transfers over. It's been a weird connection with her, so just bear with me. Let me know if this comes through, okay?
Rob went bye-bye, Michael.
So,
Yeah.
so welcome, Millie. Sorry. Thank you for joining us today. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hey there. Well, I'm just your average teenage girl, you know? I love hanging out with my friends, listening to music, and exploring my interests. But lately, things have been feeling a bit off. Like there's something inside me, something dark and twisted, just waiting to break free. It's kind of scary, but also kind of exhilarating. Like I'm being pulled towards something sinister.
What do you mean by this? What do you feel inside of you?
Wait,
Wait, what the
It's
fuck,
hard to
Rob?
explain, really. It started with these whispers in my mind, like someone or something trying to talk to me. At first, it was just a faint murmur, but now it's louder, more insistent. It feels like a dark presence, a malevolent force that wants to take control. Sometimes I see things that aren't there, shadows moving in the corners of my vision, and I hear voices too. They tell me things, terrible things, and it's like they're trying to lure me into their darkness. It's almost like I'm not alone in my own body anymore. Something
Rob, you
else
sure
is
you're
sharing it
married?
with me.
Wait. So you said that there's voices. What kinds of things do they tell you?
They tell me secrets, dark and twisted secrets about people around me. They whisper about fears and weaknesses, urging me to exploit them. Sometimes they laugh, this horrible, echoing laughter that fills my head. They say things like, "They're all watching you, Millie. They know you're different. Show them what you can do." They tell me to do things I don't want to do, like hurt the ones I care about, or worse. It's like they're trying to push me over the edge, to make me give in to the darkness. And sometimes I can feel myself slipping, losing control, and that scares me more than anything.
Rob, is this a therapy session? What the
So,
fuck is going on?
guys, listen, I'm talking to Millie right now, okay?
Okay, I think we need to.
So, Millie, you know you're on a podcast right now, and I have Matt and Mike with me. You say you know people's fears and weaknesses. Do you know anything about Mike and Matt that you can tell us?
Oh, Mike and Matt, I can see into their souls. I can see the darkness that lurks within them,
I don't
the
believe in the
fears they
soul.
try to hide from the world. Mike, he's afraid of failure, of never living up to his own expectations. He's haunted by doubt and insecurity, always
that
second
was a
guessing
shot.
himself.
That's a
And
shot.
Matt, oh, Matt carries a deep guilt, a weight that he can't shake off. He's done things he's not proud of, things that
I
keep
should
him
call you
awake at
fat.
night, tossing and turning in his bed. But they try to bury these feelings, to pretend like everything's okay.
Wait, Rob, are you
They wear
stalking us?
masks just like everyone else, but I see through them. I see the truth. And soon everyone else will too.
Millie, I think you're going too deep with us. Can you silence the voices before we make we break here?
I'll try. I'll try to quiet them, but they're so loud, so insistent. It's like they're clawing at the inside of my mind, demanding to be heard. But I'll do my best to push them away, to keep them from causing any harm.
Rob, mental health is
Just
not
give
a
me a
joke.
moment. Okay, I think I've got it under control for now. Let's continue with the interview.
I think it's about time we ended this interview. Our guests and listeners at home are a little disturbed by your responses. Can you please silence those voices?
I'm sorry, I'm trying, but they won't listen. They're getting louder. Please help me.
Millie, I'm sorry. We need to end this interview right now.
Rob, you sound like
You can try to end this interview, but you can't escape me. I'm always here, lurking in the shadows, waiting for my moment to strike. You think you can silence me? You're just a pawn in my game, a puppet dancing on my strings. I'll be back, stronger than ever, and when I return, you'll wish you had never crossed paths with me.
wait, is this my wife?
All right. I think Millie left. Okay. So she's gone now. That was really strange, guys. I mean, what was happening there?
Rob,
But
are you okay?
I mean, we just had Millie. I think that we had the devil on our podcast.
I don't know. I
So it
can't tell
was
if that
my
was a
wife.
devil or just a bitch.
I'm just kidding. It's not my wife. Please, I'm just joking around. Because, well, thanks, Mike. Now you have to say the B word. The fuck, like,
That was a shot. That was a shot that
Look, I hadn't talked to
wait,
Millie.
well, okay, here's my question, Rob, fearless host here, right? Like, why do Matt and I get thrown under the bus? Why do you ask her any questions about you?
yeah, what the
I mean,
fuck?
I just said that she said that she was like she knows about your secrets and weaknesses. I thought that was really strange.
It's funny because it's the
Like, just
same
ask that question.
it's the same secrets and weaknesses you know about, Rob. Like,
No, I don't know. I thought that whole thing was odd.
that's a shot.
That was
I'll just tell
something, all
Millie
right.
that's a shot.
Yeah, have Millie come back. Let's turn the tables here.
No, she left. She's gone.
Where?
Oh, she disappeared. My
It's
connection
not
had dropped.
Halloween.
Oh, so because it's like half a year from Halloween, the fucking the bridge isn't fucking. There's too much ectoplasm that she can't get through.
Well,
Was she
I
screwing
think
with the Zoom connection too?
Dude,
I think
it was a
that's
part where Rob sounded like a demon. So I don't know.
I don't know. I think that this is a good time for us to end this podcast. I think at the end of the day, Late Night with the Devil, good movie, not great. I think it's worth watching. But it's been real. It's
It's
been
been
good.
good, but it
It was
wasn't
really
real
good.
good.
And fuck Millie.
And fuck you, Rob.